For the Dharma School kids, I wanted to share a story that actually ties into the adult Dharma talk about the peony and the lion. Is it peony or peony? Peony. Okay, thank you. I never say that word except in the Dharma talk. The peony and the lion is a really important story in Buddhism between us and the temple. And the Chinese lion is a legendary creature. I always thought it looked like a dog, based on descriptions of what the Chinese thought the Indians were describing in the Indian lion. So there weren't lions in China, and so that's why the lion actually does kind of look like a dog. So long ago in India, the lion dominated without exception, and it was considered the king of the animal world. And so in Dharma, we talk about the lion's roar and Shakyamuni Buddha as being the king of the Dharma. So the lion was fierce and dominant, and it did have one terrible natural enemy, only one. And it was not outside the lion, but inside of it. So its natural enemy was a tiny parasite which lurked in its lush fur. And the bugs would multiply in the fur and then enter the body through the skin and eat at its internal organs. There was, however, one way that the lion could be saved. When the lion would sense this physical change happening, it would set out on a journey in search of a peony garden. And when it finds one, it would lie down with the flowers and rest peacefully. Because in reality, the peony is an herb that can literally save the lion. A certain ingredient in the peony scent has a deadly effect on the parasite. So this tale of the lion and peony, and it's reflected on our Onaijin, the story really expresses the lion's relationship between us and the temple. BCSF is a special place where we come together, where we listen and learn about the Dharma, and where we find kind and compassionate ways to live. So I thank you for being a lion in this temple, in the peony garden, and coming to Dharma school this morning. And David's shaking out his parasites right now. So thank you, Owen. Are there any other Dharma school kids besides Owen? All right, okay. So if you'd like to exit through the side, and your teachers will escort you to your classrooms. Thank you. Okay. So I'd like to begin with the words of Reverend Jerry Hirano. I find that as I grow older, I appreciate the fullness of what I am given, from the laughter of my children to the sound of my bones creaking in the morning as I awake. I am still alive. This realm of gratitude is the life of Nembutsu. It is in the impermanence of each moment of life moving forward that I am allowed to appreciate this life. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandots, 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 namandots. Namandots, namandots. So good morning, ohau gozaimasu. Happy New Year. Reverend Kobata is well and up in Oregon, visiting his children and his two adorable grandchildren. He texted me yesterday and said that he really feels like his grandkids are the middle way. The one extreme, we have all this news that he's been watching on television, and the other extreme are his grandkids. And he said it's just a perfect balance for joy. So he sends his regards, his joyful regards. I was reminded of the story of the lion and the peony while I was sitting at an interfaith breakfast last Thursday at the San Francisco Interfaith Council. The SFIC breakfasts is a free public interfaith gathering on the second Thursday of every month, and it's held at St. Mark's Church in their social hall. And there's approximately 100 different folks, congregational leaders, and lay leaders that network and share a meal together. And part of the program every month is that they select speakers that are invited from a variety of city departments, civic agencies, NGOs, and philanthropic programs to discuss the importance of their work here in the city. The guest presentation for last Thursday's January Interfaith Breakfast was the San Francisco Night Ministry. The Night Ministry was founded in June of 1964 by the San Francisco Council of Churches. They recognized the need for pastoral care for those folks living on the streets. It began with 2 Lutheran ministers walking the Tenderloin in downtown areas from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. And it included visiting bus stations, all-night coffee houses, and even some bars. Doing what in chaplaincy we call the ministry of presence. Witnessing, being present, and doing actually more listening than talking. And 54 years later, the San Francisco Night Ministry is still providing non-judgmental pastoral care and counseling and referral services and crisis intervention to anyone in any kind of distress every single night of the year between the hours of 10 and 4. These programs at San Francisco Night Ministry have expanded to include a crisis hotline. It's staffed between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., and they have a really robust volunteer department which welcomes, trains, and supervises the crisis line counselors. They have programs for interns and field workers. There's now a CPE, which is a clinical pastoral education program that's accredited through Stanford, that was created by a local Buddhist, Rick Seeger. And the cool thing is that he offers it CPE in English and Spanish. And because it was so unique and revolutionary what he was doing with his CPE and the night ministry, the ACPE, which is the parent organization of all chaplaincy certification, actually gave them a grant to get this program off the ground, which was started in 2013. They also have volunteer registered nurses, a wellness program, where they pair volunteered registered nurses with an ordained night minister on his or her nightly walk. And these nurses offer basic first aid, blood pressure screenings and sugar screenings, general health information, and of course, referrals. In early 2008, the San Francisco Night Ministry began a program that I really love. It's called Open Cathedral. Open Cathedral came about to bridge the gap that people living on the streets felt between their discomfort at attending traditional walled churches and their longing to attend and participate fully in worship. So they asked the night ministry to provide safe and friendly church services for them. Open Cathedral Civic Center is held on public space near City Hall every Sunday at 2 p.m. After service, sandwiches are distributed, which are donated or prepared by either local congregations or civic organizations, and pastoral care is offered, and referrals are provided. Open Cathedral Mission is a bilingual English-Spanish service held on public space outside of the 16th Street BART station every Thursday evening at 6:30 p.m. And again, after the service, a meal is shared, and pastoral care is offered, and referrals are provided. I sit on the San Francisco Interfaith Council with one of the night minister coordinators, Reverend Monique Ortiz. And she says that both of the open cathedrals are blessed with what she called an active usher corps. And this is where regular attendees help set up the folding chairs for service. They greet people as they arrive, and they help oversee the meal program. And despite the acts of violence and abuse and other realities of life on these city streets, each week, every week, people of all faiths, multi-faiths, come together. They gather for service. And I think this is really beautiful. Last month, I received an email from a caseworker at an SRO here in the city. She was reaching out to me because she needed a memorial service to be conducted for one of the residents in the SRO that had recently passed away. The SRO, if you don't know what that is, that's a single room occupancy. It's located, there's a bunch of them. This particular one is located south of Market. It has 50 rooms in the facility. It's populated in an area where there's a lot of folks struggling with homelessness, addictions, and with mental illness. A typical SRO is a single room that's 8 by 10 feet with a shared bathroom down the hallway. There is no kitchen, no kitchenette, and no cooking appliances are allowed at all for fire reasons. Hot food must either be brought in or you have to go out to eat it. And I've done memorials there before at this particular SRO, but this was a new social worker. And so she asked me what my expectations were. And that's kind of code for what is my fee. So I told her that I don't have a fee, that donations are not expected, that it would be an interfaith service, and that I'd bring the flowers and a really nice frame with the deceased name. And basically I set an altar up similar to my Butsudan at home. All I asked of the SRO was that they provide a bag of cookies so that we could have a nice memorial afterwards, a nice reception. So typically memorials last about 15 to 20 minutes. And as I offer these various interfaith readings, I also include On White Ashes from our tradition. I offer the ritual of Oshoko incense offering. I explain it, and people really seem to love and resonate with Oshoko incense offering. And then we sing a song together. I lead everyone in 2 verses of Amazing Grace, a cappella. And the reason why, that was actually something that was started many years ago, actually, by the San Francisco Zen Center, because one, everyone knows it. And so it's amazing how everyone knows the first 2 verses of Amazing Grace. And the first 2 verses really talk about grace. And so it always seemed appropriate to sing that song. For the reception on this particular memorial, the social worker and her assistant brought out this large pot of hot, freshly made coffee, tons of sugar, a lot of powdered powdered creamer. And she took the packaged cookies and spread them out over 2 platters, like really beautifully and thoughtfully. And so it just was a really beautiful little reception we had. The reception lasts about an hour, and that was where the real memorial happened. It was just folks telling their stories about him. James was 71 years old. He had been on the streets suffering with addictions and demons from his late 20s. He lived in this particular SRO for 37 years. Folks shared that he was cranky, aloof, and solitary. One resident said he was an a-hole but noble. And of course, she didn't really say a-hole. Of course, everyone laughed, and I prodded her, and I said, "What do you mean he was noble?" And she said, "He never lied, he was never cruel, he was sometimes even helpful, and always fair. James was someone's son. He was someone's brother, someone's father, someone's uncle, someone's best friend in childhood, someone's high school sweetheart, someone's college drinking buddy, and someone's partner in hustling on these harsh streets of ours. James was all of these things, even as he remained bedridden and weak from the effects of stomach cancer. And James was alone, except for this community that tried to look after each other the best way they could. And sitting there listening to these stories during this memorial reception, I thought about what Shinran had written in the Tanisho, how we've all been each other's mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers in the timeless process of birth and death. In our Shin temples, we've been seeing a trend away from big temple funerals and memorials. There's a lot of new and different ways for family and friends to remember their loved ones. We're seeing a lot of small, family-only, private services and memorials. More services are being held at the mortuaries. Sometimes service is only at a columbarium. And sometimes there's a dinner or lunch gathering in the loved one's honor. To me, it doesn't matter what form the memorial takes, and this may get me in trouble with many of our BCA ministers where the funeral memorial is, and actually brings in a large source of support for them. But what matters most to me is the coming together. The sharing of collective grief, collective joy and laughter through remembering. What matters most to me is the expression of gratitude, the honoring of the name. After James's memorial, in the middle of the reception, the social worker called me out into the hallway, and she handed me an envelope. And I protested, explaining that I don't charge for memorial services because I believe that everyone should have the dignity and the opportunity to have a proper memorial. But she persisted, putting the envelope in my hand, explaining that the residents had taken up a collection. And so I humbly accepted it, raised it to my head, and put it inside my sleeve of my robe. And then went back into the reception and continued to listen about the stories that folks were sharing about James. When I got home and went to hang up my robe, I reached in and pulled out the envelope. I opened it and I saw a bunch of wrinkled, worn $1 bills. There were 46 of them and one $5 bill, which I think the social worker contributed. Knowing the sacrifice that it was for these folks to give even $1, well, that $51 felt like $51,000 to me. These residents just wanted their neighbor, their friend, their fellow wounded warrior to have a proper and dignified memorial. It was important for them to gather and hear his name be said. There are several similar rituals that we have within our Shin tradition, where we hear the name of our loved one that's departed. We have our annual bone service, and of course, our monthly Shotsuki Hoyo memorial service. We gather to hear the name of our loved one read aloud, to remember, to honor, and to express our gratitude. The present life we live is so precious and fleeting. As we enter into yet another year, a new year, we often mark our life from year to year. But I think that it really should be marked and lived breath to breath. That's where the mystery unfolds. That's where life really happens. Because each breath is an opportunity to connect, to show our love, to show our affection, our appreciation, to create a softness in our heart that gives meaning to our life, as well as helps us, sustains us during difficult times. It's written in the sutras that everything is impermanent, rising and falling away, rising and falling away. So having been born, we must die. That's the natural process. That's reality as it is. And when we leave the fear behind, we come to see that death and impermanence actually points us to life, to living each moment, each breath with tenderness and appreciation. In our Shin tradition, we say Namo Amida Butsu. We say the name of Amida. What is Amida? Not who is Amida, but what is Amida? Amida is the qualities of enlightenment, immeasurable wisdom, and boundless compassion. I think surrender is such an important part of all spiritual practice. And we are surrendering, what we are surrendering to is reality as it is. The reality of impermanence, the reality of non-separateness. Everything changes, and nothing, no thing, including ourselves, is separate or self-contained. That's what I'm affirming when I say the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. I'd like to conclude this morning's reflection with the words once again of Reverend Jerry Hirano. I find that as I grow older, I appreciate the fullness of what I am given. From the laughter of my children to the sound of my bones creaking in the morning as I awake. I am still alive. This realm of gratitude is the life of Nembutsu. It is in the impermanence of each moment, moving forward, that I am allowed to appreciate this life. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namandots, 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 Namandots.